Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to Truthseekers. For so long now, people have asked me to do some kind of an update on this Anjali story. But I kept saying there's nothing really new to talk about. She claimed that she would bring a expedition to a mountain where there was a secret alien base and provide physical evidence of many of her claims of alien experiences. That fizzled out and never happened. And it's interesting that people like me and a few others, like Charlie Weiser, had people blamed us. The reason they can't go to the mountain is because you pissed off that Wayne guy. No, that's not the case. And tonight we are going to see an update of what has happened since the expedition failed, apparently. You know, I knew that it would be a good possibility that someday the people that Anjali talked about in her story, Wayne and Trisha, remember it was Wayne who owned a mountain where there was apparently a tunnel dug into it, into an alien base. And Trisha, his wife, I knew eventually somebody may get to them. And interestingly, Anjali had threatened to sue one Charlie Weiser, who you may recall from $3kit.weebly.com. And Charlie Weiser covers Betty and Barney Hill, Travis Walton, Anjali, and many other stories from a very skeptical viewpoint. But I have found her work to be very, very factually accurate. If you go and check her work, it's always really, really excellent research, well-sourced, and I trust that what she's reporting recently about the Anjali story to be very, very accurate. And essentially what she reports is that because Anjali threatened to sue Charlie Weiser, she did not reach out to Wayne and Trisha. Wayne and Trisha reached out to her based on Anjali threatening to sue Charlie Weiser. They didn't think that was right. So they apparently reached out to her, and we've got all the information about what they said. And what they said largely refutes everything that Anjali stated as facts in her alien experience story. Interesting that we get the other perspective, the other side of the story. After all, she heavily involved these people in her story. She met them in a coffee shop. They took her back to their house where she claims she was shown a tunnel into a secret alien base and had all these alien experiences. But tonight, we're going to find out, perhaps, that the reality of what truly happened is not quite that fantastic. Joining me, and this will be proof that we let anybody on this show, really, anybody. So joining me tonight to help break this down, and I wanted to have a discussion with someone else that has sort of been following the story, see what they thought about these new revelations from Charlie Weiser that refute all of Anjali's story. So you know him probably best from the Who's Lou documentary, who'sloumovie.com, a recent, very controversial documentary about Lou Elizondo. So we have Manny tonight from Area 503. Let's bring him in here. We've had him sobering up in the green room. Are you ready to go? You get some coffee in you? You sober enough? You okay?
Oh, perfect, man. And thanks
Good.
for putting a plug in for Who's Lou. That saves me the effort of having to do it.
Yeah, that's the least that I could do, you know. So it's who'sloumovie.com. I highly recommend it. Go see what all the controversy is about. Why are people... I don't want to harp on this, but listen, show hosts that even just talked about this movie with Manny here got doxxed, threatened, intimidated, copyright striked from a gang of cyber stalking assholes. It's amazing. So at the very least, you should go see a movie that people are so intent on you not watching. I mean, if somebody tells me not to watch a movie, I'm gonna watch it. And there's a group of people that don't want you to see this movie. They don't want you to ask questions of their UFO hero. But I think I still stand by that. I think Manny did a good job. And I believe in free speech, right? At least have a conversation, watch the movie, and Manny's very open. If you have questions, comments, as long as you're vaguely respectful, he'll get back to you. And you're allowed to disagree, but watch the movie first, right?
Absolutely. Give it a watch and then come and talk to me if anyone's got any questions. I'm totally open to discussing the work with people. And that's kind of what I wanted because it's such an involved situation that I really couldn't lay it all out in the work. I kind of had to just put the facts out there and let people figure out what they are and figure out what those questions mean. And then they've got to do some research on their own. And that's why I showed my work and put everything up on the webpage. So hopefully some people are doing
Oh,
that.
here we have somebody else that got messed with. Jesse Peak from MUFON 5 says, yep, got mad. Mad heat for having Manny on my show. Crazy. Yeah, these people are so afraid of a conversation. It just shows everything why you should support the movie, because people are literally trying to stamp it off the internet and censor it and get it taken down, and they screwed up. For people that don't know, if you get a big project taken off of YouTube in its first couple of weeks, you lose all momentum, all that promotion, all that work to promote it. You lose, right?
Yeah, I saw some people were saying my mic was low. I adjusted that. If it sounds too loud now, let me know. But yeah, to answer your question, Stephen, it does really steal your momentum with the algorithm and with YouTube, where it refers your video to people. And people they knew that when they did this, they knew that they were exploiting the system, that they were going to do this. So it's not like it's a oops, this just kind of happened type thing. This was intentional and malicious in nature. So, but that's yesterday. Let's talk about today. People are still talking about the film, and that's good. It's starting to pick up more steam, and people are starting to ask some questions. And it's not just people from YouTube and Twitter and stuff. There's been a lot of people from outside of the, in mainstream media and stuff that have also done that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I know at least one mainstream journalist who is using that movie sort of as a source for material and things to write about in regard to there's going to be media stories about this Lou Elizondo, and people are using your work as a source for why we should be asking questions, right?
Yeah, and that's such a good feeling, honestly, to know that other people understood what I was trying to do here and are grabbing the football and running with it. And beyond that too, it's also the empowerment of the people who are on UFO Twitter and YouTube and other places that have been silenced. Facebook groups are real bad about this, Reddit's real bad about it. Everywhere you go, people have been bullied into silence in defense of Elizondo, and a lot of those people I'm finding are feeling more empowered to come out and speak their minds again. And that's what I want. I want people to be able to speak their mind. They shouldn't, if what we're saying, if what this side of the conversation is so crazy and baseless and has no reality in the facts, it shouldn't be hard to disprove and to attack the case, not the character. That's what
Yeah.
they've done here. You attack the character, you squash the conversation. They don't want to
Well,
talk
hey,
about it.
listen, I've had some controversial guests, but I've never been doxxed over a guest, and especially not when some other idiot show host says we need to take these people down for what they did. What did I do? I had a conversation with a filmmaker about a film, and now you're doxing me and threatening me, and I'm getting nasty messages, and people are threatening to come to my house now that my aunt, it's amazing. But let's get to this Anjali story. So you've been following this probably as long as I have, because listen, it's an interesting story. A former DIA employee claims that she went out into the desert and this guy had a mountain and there was a tunnel into it, and she claims that she had all these alien experiences. I dismissed it all. And then people started sending me some information that would seem to indicate that her background was real. So I apologized because I said she was totally fake. This woman is, making all this up. It turns out, and here's where I really want to correct the record here, because people said just because I interviewed her that I believed her. No, what I did say and do believe is that her background claims, all of her background claims of being in the military, of working for the DIA, both as a civilian contractor and as a direct employee, she worked for them twice, were correct. So that part I believe, because, I can go to the National Personnel Records Center and verify her military employment, and DIA verified her employment. They won't tell you much of what she did, but they'll verify, yes, she was employed from this to this as a contractor. She was employed directly with us from this date to this date. So I apologized for saying that her background was probably made up and fake. I interviewed her. It's a very controversial figure, this woman. And it's interesting that I was amazed that there was so much interest in a story. But then, nothing new happens in UFO land. So this was something new and a new story. And people, a lot of people, experiencers especially, just totally believe everything that she said. Other people were more skeptical of her, like Charlie Weiser and others, and myself, and maybe Rich from GoofOn and a few other people, because there's a lack of evidence there. And then apparently there was all this back and forth. We found the mountain. We found Wayne. No, we didn't. She lied. It wasn't the right Wayne. There's this other Wayne. Then this Ryan said that he interviewed Wayne, but then he wouldn't provide any proof that he interviewed the Wayne, and that this Wayne refuted. But was this the right Wayne? And I'm still confused because there's two major Wayne and Trisha's. I don't know which one we're saying now is the right one, but apparently the right ones have reached out to Charlie Weiser over being threatened with a lawsuit by Anjali, and they have an entirely different opinion, right? So what did you think of this story when it broke? And what about the canceled expedition? And people are blaming me and Charlie Weiser because the expedition got canceled because we outed Wayne. We didn't really out Wayne. Apparently we outed the wrong Wayne. I think. I don't know. I'm confused.
Yeah, I've been following Anjali's story from day one, just like you have been, and I've always been a little fascinated by her, because of her outgoing personality, how friendly she is, and how open she is about her story, and about how, like you said, her credentials from the digging that I did actually checked out. Like you said, her credentials did check out.
And that makes the story compelling to me, because why is a former DIA employee and Air Force officer suddenly seeing aliens and talking about it and doing press conferences about her alien contact?
Right.
It's a compelling story.
It's a great story, and it does give some credibility to her character, that she has this background. But what I had to, when I asked her, I said, I just want to make clear that your intelligence and government work was all way before, and then you had this experience later. So these are two different events. It's not like this happened while you were working at the intelligence agency. It's not like this happened when you were part of the government. And she's never tried to cloud that fact. She's always been open about it and just said straight up, yes, this is how it is. And she's always stuck to her story and been kind of consistent like that. So I tend to believe, like, my gut instinct when I'm watching her talk is this someone who fully believes what she's saying is 100% truthful, And so
I believe she believes it.
Yeah, and I've given her a lot of patience with her story because of that. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to look into this. I'm not going to be I'm going to be skeptical, and I'm going to trust but verify. And so when you start to verify, there's not really much to verify, like you pointed out. There was very little facts in her story, which she never tried to hide. She never tried to say, oh, I've got this huge ironclad thing. I think she's been very honest with us, considering how some of the other people talk to us, you know what I'm saying? But,
yeah, and you know what? I want to say this too. Like, the purpose of tonight's show is not to drag her name through the mud or call her a liar, or, I'm interested in the truth of what really happened with her story. And it's not my intention to belittle her or to, that's not our purpose here tonight. Our purpose here is to report on the story. People ask me all the time, give us an update. What's happening with Anjali? And I nothing, I think. I don't know, but this is a new development. Now we've got the original so-called witnesses to the event saying none of this happened. And we'll get into the details of that. We're going to read through the Twitter thread of Charlie Weiser. I want to mention also that we invited Anjali. I know it was last minute, but I invited her here, and she declined for tonight. And she did send me a message. She said, go ahead, Stephen, and pass all that info around. It actually may end up making it much easier for me to demonstrate how honest I have been each step of this process. I have kept every screenshot, message, and video of conversations with this couple and others related to this. I have read and reread them and put them up against what I have stated publicly, and I am confident that though I may have unintentionally revealed too many details about them, the only time I was not truthful about my experience was when I was protecting them. So she's going to refute, apparently, what this couple is saying. So
Well, and I think
I don't
she
know what to say
mentions
about
too
that.
that, remember, she said she had lied about the identities to protect them, that the guy wasn't really named Wayne, and that she had made that name up to cover, his identity. And I understood that from day one. Nobody's going to fault her for changing her witness's name to protect their identity. That's pretty common. So I think that's what she was referencing there, maybe.
Yeah, and also, many people have the other reason that I've kind of been as kind as I could be is because I was always concerned that she suffered from some sort of mental problems or illness that could cause or create hallucinations or delusions. And I don't want to beat somebody up that's suffering from some kind of mental problems, but Anjali claims that she is 100% okay. She's been examined by psychological, experts at the VA, and they declared that she's not suffering from delusions or whatever. So her claim is that she's fully mentally sound and okay. Take that, you know, take that for what you will. So I guess we get into the actual Twitter thread. I'm going to share my screen. Um, and we're using a thread reader to make this make a little more sense. So this is reported by Charlie Weiser yesterday, all in a Twitter thread, but we were using this thread reader to make it make a little bit more sense. So Trisha says Anjali tried to make it seem like we were going to be part of the libel suit against you, you being Charlie Weiser. I was like, oh, hell no. Wayne says that's what made me reach out to you. And Charlie Weiser calls this a thread about two people who want to remove themselves from the story. Recap, Anjali says she met Wayne and Trisha in January 2018, walked through a tunnel he dug in the mountain, and met aliens. Charlie Weiser goes on to say, I just spoke to Wayne and Trisha for over an hour. I asked for their version of what happened that day. And she advises to catch up reading this tweet storm about the other Wayne, because remember, we've got the two Waynes. But she apparently has Anjali's proper, right, correct Wayne and Trisha. And this was verified through public records because at the time, the day that Anjali claims that she met the aliens in the mountain, there was a wellness check performed by the sheriff and an EMT, an ambulance. And those are public records. So I believe that Charlie Weiser has the proper Wayne and Trisha as verified by the ambulance visiting that day. So she says, please respect Wayne and Trisha's privacy. They are fed up, anxious, and scared. While chatting as a group in the coffee shop, Wayne mentioned people seeing UFOs for years over his mountain. They invited Anjali home because, quote, she seemed like a nice person, unquote. Another couple, their friends, came home too. Back home, this is where it gets interesting because some people may recall that I said that Anjali's experience sounds exactly like a DMT trip. Wayne says we did some cannabis oil. If you're not used to cannabis oil, it can hit you hard. What I'm getting at is this. We weren't sober. It does alter your mind. They walked around the land for a bit, although not the mountain itself, not sober, stoned. And I had asked Anjali in our interview if she was under the influence of any drugs, and she said no, not knowingly. Now we know that they were using cannabis oil. Okay, so this goes stated an ambulance showed up before it was even dark. Wayne had no idea why until the sheriff said it was there for a welfare check for Angelia because her daughter had called 911. Then she and Wayne chatted until a friend picked her up around 11:30 p.m. Wayne goes on to state, whatever experience Anjali had here is really in her mind. There was no mention of tunnels or aliens that night. And this, of course, directly refutes Anjali's story. Goes on to say, and when she picked up her car the next day, not a word, aside from UFOs in the coffee shop. For the next couple of weeks, Anjali texted Trisha asking to meet up, still no mention of aliens and tunnels. Trisha says, I ignored her. Wayne says, because we were freaked out by her. Wayne and Trisha do not want to be part of this story. They never wanted to be. 3 years later, a week before the press conference, Wayne and Trisha gave in to Anjali's persistent attempts to reconnect. She said that she had had an alien experience in Wayne's tunnel, and they were baffled. Wayne had no tunnels. Angelia said, "Oh, yes, you do. You just don't remember them." Wayne goes on to say, "I've tried to explain there's no tunnel here. I can't convince her. Anjali has been pressuring them to allow an expedition. Under the stress, sometimes he's felt like buckling just to get it over with. But he doesn't want strangers on his land, especially not Max, and Max would be, I believe, the boyfriend of Anjali. Wayne says Anjali told him, 'You have no idea who I am. You have no idea what I'm capable of.' He says, 'When I realized she's a powerful person who can push a button and jack our life.' When Anjali was being real persistent last year, Wayne said that she could buy his land for $10 million. He said, 'We leave it and you can have this whole place and we don't have to deal with this.' She, Anjali, said Bigelow Aerospace would pay $20 million for a few acres of mountain with no aliens." So, the story is really falling apart once you talk to these two people. We have Trisha to Anjali. "I wish I would have never met you. I wish we never invited you to our home. You're not my friend. You never were my friend. Stop saying you're my friend." Anjali to Trisha, "I'm your friend whether you think so or not. Love, your friend." That's weird. And so this couple, what they say is, "What we want is for Anjali to just go away." Trisha says, "I'm so frustrated about what she's done to our lives. Woman to woman, I'm a very angry wife." Did I mention Wayne is not a fan of Max? And they go on to say, "I don't know who you think you are, Max, talking about my cancer as if you think you know me. You don't know shit. Stop talking about my cancer out there." This is what this person, Wayne, told Max, Anjali's boyfriend. So Charlie Weiser goes on to write, "Let's give Anjali the benefit of the doubt. She had an experience of some sort while high. But according to Wayne, there is no tunnel. So whatever happened, it was in her head. It was not in a tunnel with aliens inside. Therefore, Wayne and Trisha are not part of her story. Again, Wayne and Trisha tell me aliens and tunnels were never spoken about that day, the next day, or in messages for the next 2 weeks, after which they lost touch. 3 years later, Anjali returns with a tale of Lavi, the lavender alien, removing her consciousness in the mist of night. Trisha, she said that they were standing over her and they were all shiny. And I'm thinking, yeah, that was the ambulance you were in, lady." So Anjali's assessment of Wayne and Trisha matches mine. They are genuine and lovely people. We had a good laugh, but their anguish is palpable. They've tried everything they can think of to make her go away. We need to stop the cycle. How can Wayne and Trisha make Anjali accept that they were not part of her story? That whatever happened, it was in her head. That whatever she remembers now, it doesn't reflect reality. There are no tunnels or aliens in Wayne's mountain. And here's another detail that Anjali really harped over, which was there was some kind of archway in Wayne's house. And after the experience, the aliens teleported her back. And Wayne said, that's where the aliens return us to once we're in the alien base. P.S. There was no big wooden arch teleporter pad dividing Wayne's house in two. Wayne tells me there is a door separating the front and back of the house. This revelation crushed me. So that's pretty much it. How did I remove? Did I bounce you out? I didn't mean to. I apologize.
Oh no, it wasn't your fault. I had internet problems and had to pop back in. But I was
Oh,
watching
okay.
from backstage. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So what we have is that this couple entirely refutes Anjali's recollection of events. There's no tunnel. She claimed Wayne dug the tunnel into the alien mountain. Apparently, there is no tunnel. There's no archway in his house. She never discussed aliens with them the night that she claimed she had the experience or the 2 weeks after. It's like we have two totally different versions of the same event. Anjali's version claiming that this Trish and Wayne were in on it and know about the aliens in the mountain, that Wayne dug the tunnel into the mountain, into the alien base. And I guess the story falls apart here, right?
I'm glad you brought it up, and I'm glad that you offered Anjali the chance to come here today to answer, to respond to this. And at some point, she's going to have to respond to this because this gives. I mean, if you think about the two stories and you think about these people together on that night, this really does have a more ring of truth to it that's supported by fact. This version of the story, it is still just Wayne and his wife. Trisha, is that her name, Trisha? So it's their version versus Anjali's, but it really does have the smack of truth. And when they said the one part that really stuck with me was that part about the ambulance and the aliens. I was like, wait a minute, because we knew that an ambulance was called that day from the 911
Yeah, and if
records,
you're in
right?
an ambulance, they're going to lay you on a bed and they're going to do an examination, which sounds strangely similar to her laying on a table or something that she said, and they took her out of her consciousness. Now, the one thing that I'm a little confused about is cannabis oil, because maybe it's just the only cannabis oil I've ever tried is CBD oil, and that didn't really get you high. It just sort of relaxes you a little bit. It doesn't create hallucinations, but I don't know that THC infused cannabis oil, if it's really, really concentrated, couldn't produce some of these effects, right? I don't
I
know.
would know. Yeah, I mean, I assume it could. I mean, something. It sounds like something did. Maybe it was a combination of the cannabis oil, whatever that was,
Charlie
or
Weiser is here. Welcome, Charlie
oh,
Weiser.
nice.
Yeah, I'm
Nice.
going to check her
Awesome
Twitter
reporting,
right now.
Charlie. Great
Yeah,
reporting, by the
great
way.
job.
And I agree with what you said earlier. Like, I've fact checked a few of Charlie's pieces of information enough to know that when Charlie puts something out there, it's pretty dang thorough. Like, I haven't found any reason to discredit Charlie's research, and I find it interesting that other people think they do without any evidence that it's not good. So yeah. Was there a new tweet from Anjali that had come out, or?
Yeah, I think she's just talking about what she replied to the thread where you invited her to the show. Anjali says, "My experience has not come crashing down. Respectfully, no. I am not available in an hour. I am not available tonight. Go ahead and have your say tonight. Pass all that info around. It is a relief that Wayne and Trisha finally spoke up. I don't have to worry about them anymore."
Well, there you
Um,
go. Yeah, and that's kind of what Wayne was saying too. Just like, hey, we got this. You don't need to speak on our behalf. That's kind of what I was picking up from his communication there. Like he doesn't need anybody else to tell his side of the story now, and I think he sees the benefit in coming out with it. The 10 and 20 million is kind of interesting. I mean, if I had a piece of land that was valued at, I don't know what their land is valued at. Let's just say it's $1 million, and somebody offers you 10 million. Take it. Say you want
yeah,
it can be your headache. Bigelow, if you want to pay me 20, great. Let's get a bidding war. I'll call Christie's and let's get a bidding war going on it, for 20%. But like I don't understand why people, I get they wouldn't want to leave their home and stuff for any amount of money. Some people don't need the money and so they don't have to, but I'm just, it sounds like Wayne and wanted to get his side. They wanted their side out there, you know, um, especially if,
yeah,
if it sounds like they're kind of concurring with what Charlie was already coming up with, and it sounds like Charlie was trying to get somebody was trying to bully Charlie into silence with a lawsuit or whatever, like that's not right, especially when somebody's just doing good investigative journalism and bringing the truth out. Like we got to have this stuff and keep it up, Charlie. Don't let anybody silence you.
yeah, I agree. And I will say, Charlie, listen, Anjali was very kind to me and to others, even though we were very skeptical of her. And what I should or would say to Anjali is that I agree with most or all probably of Charlie Weiser's reporting on the whole story. So why are you suing Charlie Weiser and you're not suing me? I'm just as critical of a lot of parts of the story. It just, and I don't understand that. It's right out of Corey Good's playbook. Like, if you can't argue with the facts that your critics dig up, sue them into silence, And I totally don't support that. I understand maybe she felt attacked but you can't just sue people because they disagree with you on the internet, right? I mean, you can sue somebody for anything, but I don't think that's
Yeah,
a good idea.
it's a
Especially if
it's
you're
a
going to be a
poor
public
idea.
figure. You made these incredible claims. What do you expect people are going to dig? Of course, people are going to dig into it. you
Well,
know?
and that's what I don't understand, Stephen, is that, like our ufology is full of two things, like skeptic, there's believers, but there's also a bunch of skeptics and investigators. Like, why would you come into a field that's full of skeptic and investigators with a story that is easily picked apart? Like, I just don't get it unless they really do. I know that some of them, like, like Lou says, he just thinks we're all bottom dwellers that are sitting around in our underwears with our X
Yeah,
Files poster on the
in
wall,
our mom's basement, in our
Y-
mom's basement. I
Right.
have
So I
that I want to believe poster, and you know what? I decided I'm taking it down because it's too cliche. You
too
can't have a
cliche,
show like this
man.
and not have that poster in your room. I'm gonna give it to my kids or something. I'm gonna put a guitar there or something better
Right.
because I'm running out of
Everybody's
room in
got
here.
it. But like there's some real savvy investigators, and I don't just mean the late Stan Friedman. There's other people who are picking up the ball, like yourself, and like recently myself. Like who have really stepped up to fill a hole that's kind of been exploited. So I don't know. Maybe that's notice to some of these other grifters out there. If you're going to come into the scene with some kind of cockamamie story and think it's going to float, don't. Just be prepared to get called out on it because the people are watching. There are lots of cool
Yeah,
people out there. I saw Scott Brown. I haven't seen him in forever. What's up, Scott?
yeah. We're gonna have Scott come on the show sometime. He was very critical of her story as well, and was on some of those panels, that we had talking about it, where she was here. I'm a little disappointed because one thing I will say that I respect her for is that she's kind of like a firebrand. Like people talk shit and she goes, "I'm coming on your show. I'm going to tell my side of the." So I was kind of hoping that she
I
would,
totally
but I didn't
agree.
want to twist her arm or whatever. I thought it was important though that we give this update of like, here's what's been going on, and here's what people, here's what Charlie Weiser has found, and I'm very supportive of Charlie Weiser. Somebody just tried to dox her, and they identified the wrong person that wasn't her. So I don't
Wow.
know.
Double wow.
And
How do people do that or think that that's okay? Like, I don't even want to go down that path today. Let's keep it here. But and Jolly's really I agree. She's a firebrand, and she's also very, like I said, she believes what she's saying. So I find it actually pleasant to engage and talk to her. I don't find it at all combative
well,
or
that's why I couldn't be
unproductive.
nasty. I couldn't be nasty or mean to her because first of all, I believe that she believes what she's saying is 100% the truth. So, I can't really attack her for having an experience and believing it. I just don't. I got stuck on the DMT trip. That was what I said this was most likely caused by because she talks about a purple being. She talks about getting pulled out of her body. And go look up a DMT experience and listen to people. It's very common for people to feel those two things. One, that they were taken out of their body, and two, that they communicated with a purple being. And that's what she described. So,
Wow.
for all I know, maybe there was DMT in the cannabis oil that she was taking with these people. I don't know. But it just sounds so incredibly similar to a DMT trip to me that I thought that was the likely explanation for what happened to her.
It all makes sense, especially when you add in, the ambulance and then that whole story that you read just sounds like base truth, like it sounds like people that, there's two people on one side who are telling one story and then one on the other, so this
Yeah.
has
And
a far more realistic feel.
William K is asking, can strong cannabis oil make you see aliens? I don't know, but I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of people in my audience trying real strong cannabis oil tomorrow. And really, if you look, report back the results because I'm not big on oil. I've had CBD oil. I've never had THC oil, so I don't know. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I assume it could. I mean, in like any drug, if you take too much of it, who knows what it's going to do to you. So it wouldn't be too hard to, make that conclusion based upon everything else. But again, I really want to hear Anjali's response to this new information. I hope she's out there listening, Anjali. I'm not going to be combative about it. I'm not hostile. That's not what this is about. But I
yeah,
want to
she's
know if,
welcome. If she changes her mind, she's welcome to come on and we'll just have a talk with her and she can tell us, what she has to say about what these people are saying about her experience that, you know, contradicts much of what she said.
well, like I said earlier too, a couple of times, it does have a much more reality-based perspective from Wayne's story with the archway to the ambulance to I mean, everything. It's just like, oh, well, there you go. That explains it. So Is this, ironclad? Yeah, I mean, I think it is. So I want to hear what Anjali has to say. And if she's willing to consider this evidence that maybe it might, despite her beliefs, because I said that earlier, we both agreed, like we both feel like Anjali really believes her experience was real. But what I'm curious is if
Well,
she's
not
willing
only
to
that, but
accept this
she,
new evidence.
yeah, not only that, but she claims that she has these ongoing communications with these aliens on a, I guess, like a daily basis. And so,
Yeah.
apparently, but other people have pointed out that maybe that's her way of like removing the physical side of her experience. She claimed that her experience was physical inside a mountain and this and that, and saying, "Oh no, I have this conscious contact anytime I reach out to them." You know, makes it more mental and not so physical. People were
Mhm.
people were speculating that that's how she's going to pull the story out to move on to the it's mental and it's telepathy and it's not physical.
Yeah.
So who
Well,
knows, right?
it's very possible, and we've seen people do that in our field here before. There is another famous Dr. Greer that we talk about who goes into certain areas like that. But the point being too, and that's that something that we kind of mentioned before is that sometimes people get surrounded with a group of others that are just afraid to tell them no for one reason or to pull them back to ground and say no, wait a minute, you're getting a little bit out there, you need to come back to reality. And we've seen it in the cases of celebrities, but also in the cases of real strong personalities too. Will tend to do that too in just our day-to-day lives. I've seen it where there's a strong matron figure in a family, and everyone's just like, "Oh my God, we can't question anything. She's always right," or other things. But it is easy with celebrities because they have that money and power, and so people who surround themselves are,
They really live in a bubble. Like if you've
yeah,
ever like I've known a few famous people, and they live in a bubble, and then a lot of times they don't get the same, I guess, treatment that a normal person would. Like a normal person, their friends would go, "You're full of shit, man. This is too crazy. Calm down." But if you got all this money and fame, that people just let you go off and do your thing. But back to this cannabis oil thing, she was adamant that no, she didn't partake in any drugs. They weren't drinking. But now we know that she was drinking. I suppose you drink it, right? The cannabis oil. And what do we think of the possibility that it wasn't just cannabis oil? That it was cannabis oil with a hallucinogenic drug added to it? Could be many different compounds that could cause these sort of hallucinations added to the cannabis oil. We don't know that she was on other medications that may have, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to get to what could generate these experience in a woman that has a very serious. She's got a very serious background. She worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency. She worked for the Air Force. So I'm so curious as to what it was that she ingested. We know she ingested something now, cannabis oil, but we don't know if there was something else in it that caused these experiences. Maybe she got what people would call dosed. Because I don't know about you, but I grew up in rock bands, and some guys used to think it was funny to dose people. Like let me drop this in their beer, and then we'll watch and we'll all have a laugh at them tripping their balls off. It's not
hmm
funny,
it's
but
not
people
funny.
people do this and they think it's funny. So how does she know that what she drank was only cannabis oil? Could have been dosed with anything, right?
Well, did Anjali say it was cannabis oil? Because I thought she had said she didn't take anything,
She
or
did say
not
she
that
didn't take
night.
anything. This Wayne and
Right.
Trisha said that they were all
That they were all doing it
they
together,
were,
right?
yeah. Hmm.
So, let's run with that for a second. Let's assume that they were out there all just taking some cannabis oil for a bit, and having fun and taking a hike in the desert, going to go look at the stars. Sounds like a good time, right? Maybe there could have been something else in there that was slipped in there. Or here's another thing too, is every body's different, like not everyone's going to, if you take a sip of a cannabis oil, it's not going to affect you the same as it does me, as it does Anjali, as it does anybody else. Every body is different, so we don't know how it could affect her. We could assume that did happen. I don't think Wayne sounds like the type of person to dose someone on their own, just for giggles. It sounds like he was drinking whatever she was drinking too, but then it just didn't hit him as hard for whatever reason. Maybe he took a little sip and Anjali put a big old college chug on it. I don't know. But she said she didn't take anything. So somewhere between there's some kind of truth, like, because she says she didn't take anything. They had this whole experience, and stuff like that. What would she say if they were to show her the medical logs from the 911 call where they summoned an ambulance there? Would she believe it, or is she going to stick to this story that it was something
No,
else?
she said that they did. There was an ambulance there. She's the one that let that out, which she's made. If she wanted to keep these people's information private, she's made a few mistakes dropping information like that. Because then we go, I'm sure somebody like Charlie Weiser and James Conrad went, well, let's go look at the ambulance logs and the 911 calls, and we'll find exactly the house where this
Yeah,
occurred at.
you can
And
get a recording of the phone call if you wanted to. You could FOIA
Lord
that and
Ludacris
give it to her.
Plaid, I did not know this. According to Lord Ludacris Plaid, I don't know if this is true, but schizophrenia can be triggered by cannabis. I would assume maybe, yeah. If somebody's already a little frayed on the edges of sanity, and then you give them a drug that increases mental activity and speeds your brain up, or makes you a little paranoid, that could cause some kind of a rift. And of course, we're just speculating here. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist or expert on drugs, though I have a lot of experience with that stuff in my younger years, especially. It
Yeah.
used
So
to be a thing in Philadelphia. You would go down the South Street and you would get LSD tabs, and put it under your tongue, and then you're going to have a fun night. Um, but I did way too much of that stuff when I was young, and then I had a really bad one and said I'm never doing that again.
hmm yeah, well,
All it takes is one that's real bad, and you go, oh God. And
done with
this was
that.
the stuff with the strychnine in it, so you're going to be tripping balls for like 24 hours straight. You can't sleep. That's terrible.
No
It was
fun.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing about that though, remember, so if a paramedic was summoned that night, it's safe to assume that they checked her vitals for, to make sure she's stable, that she doesn't have any sort of, visible signs of anything. But that's not a psychological assessment, and it's not an assessment of any sort of, what I mean? They're not looking her body over for wounds to see if she was abducted or has an implant. They're checking her heart rate and her blood pressure and her temperatures and, her eye dilation
Yeah.
and responses
Vitals.
and
Yeah.
things. Yeah, it's vitals. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for, the vitals. So, they did get that. So we know that nothing was too bad. Even if she was dosed, it was enough that they said, yeah, you're safe to stay here and not get transported to the emergency room, which is their duty to do. But yeah, I'd be real curious to see if she comes up and answers to this new information, says, well, no, this is all a lie, or these are the wrong people and they're misinforming on me. But if these are the right people and she's calling him a liar, that's not going to look, it's going to look even worse for her. If these are the right people, Anjali, you should probably just admit it now and try to figure out what really
One
happened that
second.
night.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Yep. One
Books asked
second.
how thorough was the medical checkup. Well, it was a paramedics on the scene, so we don't, it wasn't a full ER checkup, but it was, probably like Steven said, just the vitals.
Somebody was calling from a private number. I don't know. Call back if you're who I think you might have been. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think Charlie Weiser says we're on the wrong track. Well, tell us what the right track is. You think? I think that Charlie may think that she's just making all this up, and we're kind of going, maybe she got dosed and really believes this. But
Well,
maybe,
honestly, I tend to agree with Charlie that she is making it up, but I want to know why she feels like she believes it. That's the part that kind of worries me, because she's not acting like someone who's telling a lie. She's acting like someone who has a perception, like a perception of a kind of an altered past. Like is just sticking to their guns on something. So I don't know, but maybe that's what Charlie's talking about there.
yeah, Charlie, you let us know what your take on it is. You've been digging into it for quite a while. Let us know what your take on it is. I'm sorry, I'm not. It's difficult to multitask here. I'm paying attention to the live chat, so if I see you, post a comment or
Oh,
one
yeah, grab that. Put them on if it's who you think it is.
private number again, and then the
Grab it.
call drops. Yeah, but the
Oh,
call drops before I can get it.
oh, you can't get a connection. It's probably a VoIP that's not got a good internet.
Maybe, yeah.
I agree with what
Let
V
me check
said,
in with
though.
my Twitter. Yeah, what do you think
V said
about what V
something
said?
here. She says, "I." V says, "I tend to believe what that Anjali believes she believes." It's a lot of belief, but yeah, and I think we're all on the same page. When when you're looking at Anjali, she's not. You don't get to feel like she's someone who's trying to lie to you. Your internal BS detector gives you that clarification. But that's intelligence people for you, aren't they? Paid to do that.
Yeah, that's another thing that worried me about her is her, government ties. How do we know that they didn't send her out to talk about this stuff or get people interested in aliens instead of what's really going on? I don't trust people that are former government employees to tell me the truth about anything, especially aliens, you
Well,
know?
on the timing, remember, I asked her that too. I said, it seems awful fortuitous that you come out when you do, when there's this resistance against Mr. Elizondo at the time. That was around the alien threat fiasco, and people really started questioning hard, besides the rest of us who had been run over for the years. But, I said, it's really fortuitous that you come out and there's this distraction that's not only a distraction, but is a almost perfect distraction with someone who you can't argue with because she is. Nobody wants to. How can you look at Anjali and get angry? You can't. Like, she's such a nice person. Like, even when she disagrees with people, she does it in a civil way. That's just it's cool. You might not get the answers you want out of her, but she's not like going to attack you and call you a jerk and all that stuff. So, I really do admire her moxie. And like you said, her firebrand. I admire that when people. That when I reached out to her to be here tonight and tweeted to her, she responded within minutes and was like, "Thank you, but I can't be there." Like, I admire that instead of
I
just
get that. Yeah,
ignoring us.
she's a nice person, so I don't want to beat her up or some people, I think it's not black and white. There's gray areas. Like there's some people that are out there that you can research and that they're making things up. They're selling fake information to believers. They're very toxic people. Buy my course, buy my documentary. I'm going to tell you all the truth about aliens, but they never seem to do it, and they make tons of money for decades. I didn't get that from her. I
Well,
just
because
didn't
she's not
get that
asking
from
for
her.
anything, right? She
Yeah.
didn't ask for money, and in fact, she did that whole remember witness citizen poll to get, and you were on it. Like, if she'd have made that expedition to the mountain, you were going to be there, right?
Hello, this is Steven. Dropped call again. And this time it's from unknown. I'm going to turn this off. If anybody needs to contact me, they know how to do it. DM me on Twitter. It's at Stephen Cambion, or PM me on Facebook. I'm going to monitor each. I was hoping that maybe that was her. So Charlie Weiser says, I do not think she made it all up or that she was dosed. So what do you think?
Yeah, where's the
Okay,
middle
we'll
ground,
see.
Charlie?
Remember, she did not say on that day she saw aliens tunnels. I think she may have incorporated that day into later experiences or meeting entities on other drugs or via meditation. Yeah, maybe she conflated two different events. That's a good possibility.
Well, that would make sense to, like you were saying too, like how she continues to have these contacts and experiences as well, right? Like she could be
This one I never got.
putting some of that on
Rebecca
you.
Turner says, "Okay, let me ask you guys this: if Anjali was ugly and fat, would you still believe her? I bet most of you would not. I know a lot of you want to, because she's good looking. Yeah, people accused me of being in love with her and simping for her or something, and I don't get it. You know,
Yeah,
I don't understand.
I
But
don't care
I
what
don't
she
base.
talks or what she looks like, but it's how
Yeah,
she communicates with people, right, Stephen? Like she's very, like we said, she's personable. So I wouldn't care if she was, as you put it, fat and ugly, as long as she still talked to me with the same way that she does. We'd have the same interaction.
yeah, and I'm a really married guy. Like I don't even think I look at other women like that. I try not to. I don't want to get beat up. My wife's.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's kind of subjective, anyways. I mean, attraction like that is all in the eye of the beholder. So
Yeah, but it's interesting though that a lot of people have cited her appearance and said that one of the reasons she had a whole bunch of male followers that were interested in UFOs and aliens is because she's attractive. I don't see it, but I recognize that people think that maybe, right?
yeah, yeah. Like I said, I just think that she's pleasant to talk to because she's very open and frank and is like, this is what I know and this is what I don't know and this is what I'm trying to say and that's it. It's refreshing, like it's not having to sift through and read between the lines. I mean, maybe in some cases, but with her direct experience, it's not. So that's what I was referring to. But yeah, I'm curious to, yeah. Charlie, if that's the case, what do you believe? I'm real curious what you think her motivations were to come out when she did. What was the
Yeah, a lot of people think
catalyst?
it was a setup for writing books. She wanted to sell some books in the future.
Well, I think if you follow Charlie's early research, that kind of syncs with the podcast and the other different attempts to liven up what would normally seem as like a normal life and try to make it into something more creative. So maybe we're seeing that manifestation in a different form. Instead of on paper, it's in reality now, or in a public persona, or I don't know. I mean, like we'd have to really get into who is Anjali to answer that, and she should be here to answer that. Um,
Yeah, we don't want to speak for her. She's going
no,
to
and I'm
have
not
her
trying
own
to.
take on this. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it is interesting
Well,
though that Wayne has just straight up said, "Look, there's no tunnel. That's all garbage." And I wonder if at this point, if anyone is still interested, hey Wayne, if Bob Bigelow pops up and says, "Hey, I want to buy your mountain for 20 mil," take it. Just don't let him write a little asterisk in there that says, "Oh, if we don't find a tunnel, the deal's off." Say it's sight unseen and it's sold as is for 20 mil. You can have it. But yeah, I mean, other than
there'd
that,
be
if he
some
wants, oh yeah.
disappointed dudes when there's no aliens after you spend 20 million, you know?
Wayne, take Bob's money. He's got plenty to share. Go ahead. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, maybe
Yeah.
he would let a civilian group come in there at some point if he really wants to clear the air and say, "B, I'm done." Like it sounds like before he didn't want that. Remember, Anjali was saying, "Oh, well, Wayne doesn't want all this attention. He doesn't want all this attention. He doesn't want people all over the place." But now it sounds like Wayne is coming out a little bit, so he might be a little bit more responsive. He might say, "Hey, yeah, if you guys want to do some kind of thing over there, we'll do it. I'll let one of these people who offered to pay a little bit of money to come in and film something do it, or just do it as a service to show you there's no dang tunnel. This is all, a story." So I don't know. Maybe as Charlie's communicating with Wayne, he'll come around. I mean, I know it's hard because Charlie's on one side of the world and Wayne lives down south of me a few hours. But that's just
Hmm.
how it works.
Yeah.
Good for you for doing that research, Charlie, and for digging in and not letting go. I appreciate it for one, and I hope a lot of other people do too.
Yeah. And, it's interesting that there's still such intense interest in her story, given the fact that there is literally zero evidence other than her testimony of what she claims happened to her. I found the interest in her story was amazing to me, that so many people were interested when there's no, normally when somebody comes out with one of these stories, they have some kind of proof. It's usually pretty weak, or one of those maybe proof, but they show something other than testimony. But I think people like Corey Good opened the door for people to just come and tell a good story, and people jump all over it because this hunger for this information to be true and real, and for people want new information about this. And this was a new story, which is rare in this thing, brand new story.
Let me ask you this, okay? Like, and this is a complete hypothetical. I'm not saying that this is what Anjali has done, but let's just say that the intelligence community wanted to do a kind of test to see how much traction a completely unverified story could get with a minimal amount of credentials. Because let's face it, her intelligence credentials were in the 70s and they weren't very. She wasn't there for a long time, if I remember correctly. It was a very
Yeah.
short period of time. So the point being, if you wanted to say, hey, let's take a very, 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 very junior person with minimal experience and see how far they can get on a completely unsubstantiated story, this would be a perfect experiment because it shows that she not only got her foot in the door, but actually probably gained a little bit of traction after the initial dive when things didn't go through for the expedition. But pretty much since then, she's gained some traction and she's got some respect. But people have been like you and me, we're just like, what's there to talk about until there's something new, which finally there is with Charlie's new drop of this information. So we just didn't have anything for so long because, and Anjali was the first to say that. Well, there's nothing real new. I can't, I can tell you about the same story over and over again, or tell you about my opinions or philosophies, but that's got nothing to do with the purple alien, Wayne, the mountain, and all of that. So I think she's been writing that a long time, and I wouldn't be surprised if, even if she wasn't an op, she was allowed to do that so that they could operate, so they could look at it and see how far it went and see how to critique it so that they could use that tactic in the future. That might be why someone from the intelligence agency just didn't out her right away and say, she was only worked here a few years, or there's no reason for this to be legit. But, good for Wayne for coming out and speaking up. I'm really glad to hear that. It's kind of sad it took so long, but I can understand why Wayne wanted to remain out of it because of all of the public scrutiny. Like you said at the beginning of the show, she had inadvertently let the cat out of the bag and given way too much information because Anjali underestimated the internet. Like, if people want to find out where you're at, because they'll look at the moss on a tree to figure out where you're at, and they will find you if enough people are looking. It's happened. We've seen it many, many times. So, she underestimated the internet. I think she kind of underestimated Twitter too, with all the skepticism that she was going to get on there. But she handled it like a champ by doing that community witness citizen thing. Like, to me, I was just like, if this goes through, I'm 100% Anjali, man. Because I was pumping for you, Stephen, and there was a couple other people I knew that were on there, and I was telling everybody, go vote for Stephen, go vote for our people, get some person that we know personally on this committee, because I want to know someone who goes into that mountain and says, yes, there's an alien in there. I'll be like, I'll take your word for it, Stephen. Show me the video that you shot. And that
I
was
wanted
the point.
to. I would have went if there was something to it. If she's, I would have went. And V is saying, which one of us is mispronouncing her name? Is it Anjali or Anjali? Like, I think she's okay with either pronunciation. I don't know. I say Anjali.
I've always
Right?
said it Anjali too. I thought, was I saying it
Or
a different way?
Anjali. If people are upset, if you're,
I
no offense, and this is, listen, no offense, but if you're
well,
going to pick a made up name and it has some weird pronunciation, people might get it wrong, right? So, and no
yeah,
disrespect intended to her if I get it wrong.
yeah, me either. Definitely. Like, I've always been respectful to Anjali, who, you know what I'm saying? Anjali, I've always been respectful to her, and I don't know why people want to think I'm trying to disrespect her. I'm not, but there are some questions with her story. So, yeah, I'll be curious what she says when she sees this. She told us to talk about it and to get it out there, so that's what we're doing. Um, and I'll wait for her response. I follow her on Twitter, and, I'll wait to see what she has to say. I hope it's not too long because I'm curious, but, what does the channel think about this? What do people in the chat think about this new information? I mean, do they feel like what do you guys think? Do you think there's something there, or do you think it's more of a mundane issue?
She said there's no Lee at the end. Ajal, then how am I supposed to say it? See,
Anjal?
this is what I'm saying. Is some people are so particular about everything. Anjali,
So it'd be
Anjali.
Anjali.
Yeah,
I don't know. Record it and play a video for us so we know. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not being disrespectful, but yeah. And I don't know. She didn't say anything about me butchering her name when I was on the live stream with her. So anyhow,
by the way, just a mention there, Manny. Somebody was in the live chat doxing me and now my wife, so they were removed.
tonight, right now, in this during the
Yep,
stream.
right in our live chat, somebody is talking about, you know, doxing my legal name. They mentioned my wife's first name.
Yeah, we all know
Listen
who
to
that
this.
is, and they just
Answer
need to
the
stop.
question right.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
want to play a game. Answer the question right, and your wife lives. Answer it wrong, and you won't make the sequel. And they keep ringing my phone. Three guesses who that asshole is.
Oh, I saw that. Was that the guy with the little scream mask in the chat?
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
that's
funny.
mess. Oh yeah, really? Oh, I see what they're doing there. That's just terrible. And enough of reports of that to YouTube will get an IP address. So I hope they're bouncing their signal through a few different VPNs, not just one.
Yeah, I apologize on the name thing. Like, I want to pronounce her name right. I think I even asked her when she was on my show. I'll have to review exactly how she says people should say her name, and we'll say it.
Yeah, I think people were just looking for a
Call
reason to be
ended.
upset there. That's fake rage. I'm sorry. Anjali knows that I've never butchered her name or been disrespectful to her. And if she feels that way, I'd like to hear from her because I feel like I've
Oh, maybe
always
it's
been
me then. It's
respectful.
Anjali, not Anjali. I'm sorry. No disrespect intended.
Nah.
But
So, yeah, like people do pick on names. They look at appearance. That's all that just little sarcastic, character assassination stuff. That's nothing like going into a chat with somebody's personal information. Like that's just beyond any sort of norm. Like that person needs some psychological help or incarceration, maybe.
yeah,
Notorious
yeah.
creepy
And then
looking
there's other
person.
people you'll remember, like, yeah, and that ghost face person is the one that keeps ringing my phone. Like, great, now I have to change my cell phone number because some assholes have it.
Yeah, yeah. We all have to.
And
We
they're
have to do that at some point.
literally threatening my family in the live chat.
Well, we'll be
And
addressing
we
that. We
we
talked
know this
about that
is
before
over.
the show. Remember, like there's other ways that we can address that are not don't require these passive systems to be in place that aren't working. So we'll handle that. Yeah, but Anjali, I hope you do hear this, and I hope you feel comfortable coming on talking about this sometime because you're in a. This is a respectful platform. It's would be a comfortable conversation. No one's going to try to jump on your gotcha. Yeah, all the information's right there. So, figure out how you want to address it and come on sometime so we can talk because people here want to know your side. But, as it stands, if she doesn't answer this, then there's pretty much no reason to ever talk about her again, really, as far as I'm concerned. Her story's pretty much debunked as a vision or a drug induced hallucination or something like that, unless she can refute the research that Charlie's done here. So, yeah, we'll see how she responds.
Yeah. This, I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted looking at these messages from this asshole.
Yeah, no, I get that, and that's exactly why they do that,
Oh,
Steven. They're
they
trying to
said
get
I'm
our thoughts
standing
again.
out. They said I'm standing outside the house now.
Yeah,
It's- things are going a little too far with the certain show host asshole who doxed me, and now apparently everybody's got some personal information of mine, and people are going to come at me and make threats. Good luck if you come to my house because I've got a lot of weapons.
wasn't there a YouTuber by the name of Boogie where someone showed up at his house and they got a pistol shoved in their face because of stuff like this? Like this is America. You probably don't want to go knocking on people's door and harassing them. That's a pretty bad idea.
Or threatening their wife on a public live stream in the live chat. That's pretty fucking stupid.
Yeah, it's immature and stupid, and people who threaten are just looking for attention. Otherwise, they just do it. So, whatever. Yeah, too bad. It's sad that you have to deal with that because of this, and that all that started. Didn't that all that start when you
Yeah,
hosted
it's
me
your
after
fault.
Lose?
It's your fault. It's all your fault.
Yeah, we'll be talking more about that in the future too, in different platforms. But yeah. So I don't know, man. I think at this point, I think the book is pretty much closed down on Jolly if she doesn't respond to this. And again, this is pretty much day one, so she needs to be given some time to respond to that. It's not fair to call her up before
Yeah,
dinner and
and
be like, "Can you come on the show in 60 minutes?" you know,
yeah, I
but
agree. Yeah, I didn't know I was going to do this until right before an hour before the show or whatever. I was kind of debating whether I wanted to cover it or not. But since everybody asked me for an update on this Anjali story, and there was really no update to give, and now I felt like, well, this is new information, and people should know that these so-called witnesses to her story refute most of what she said in her story. You know,
and again, and it does refute it. It has more of a feel of reality to it than the counter story, which was quite fantastic to be amazing or to be blood. I mean, it was just extraordinary. But yeah, I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens when she responds, and go from there.
yeah. And I want to mention that she's welcome to come here anytime, and there's an open door here. She can come and give her side of the story. We'll be respectful. We'll be kind to her, as kind as and respectful as we can be. Um, that's all we can do here, and I'd be happy to give her an opportunity to talk about these recent revelations. And if she disputes what they've said, great. She can tell her side of it. Um,
Well, what's it going to
Yeah.
take to get get all three of them on a live stream together and just say let's hash this out in public? Like it seems like they represented their story and it synced with all the facts that we found. The ambulance and all that other stuff. Like you've got one story that fits the evidence and the other that has, I guess, fits the evidence because she admitted the ambulance showed up, but is a completely different take on it. So yeah, it should be interesting to see how this unfolds, and I'm curious what other people's takes are on the new evidence. So we'll see how people are responding to it out there on Twitter, and if anyone makes videos about it.
Yeah, I don't know where the story goes from here. Where do you think it goes from here? So, I mean, she could just refute what they said and keep going with her contact stories, I guess.
Yeah, but
I
like
don't
I
know.
said, if she doesn't address it, I just don't see how anyone can take her seriously. She has to address this counter story because it's pretty, even without any evidence, it's just a straight counter story that counteracts hers, and she doesn't have any evidence either. So, like I said, one smells like reality, and the other sounds like a interpretation or a perspective. So,
Or a delusion.
or delusion, or yeah. So yeah, that's we'll just see what happens. Like I said, it's still just day one for me. I just found was made aware of this today, and I don't know. Like you said, Anjali's obviously been aware of it for a while, but if there was some sort of response to it, so that I'm kind of curious why she didn't just address it then. Why wait for someone on these platforms to bring it out? Why wait for someone on Twitter or YouTube? Why not contact Charlie directly and say, hey, like this is my side, like let's squash this, But maybe she can't. Maybe she can't. So,
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to have Wayne and Trisha and Anjali on one show, right?
dude,
And let
book it.
them hash it out. Yeah, I would really like to do that because then we're going to get a better sense of which one of these people are, which side of the story is the true story and which side is an embellished or made up account or misinterpret it. Again, I want to be as fair to her as possible. Some people are saying she may have conflated, multiple events down to one, or you know,
Yeah. And, honestly, I think you have been way fair, and way delicate with the situation, which is good, because you sense that there might be more than, we've talked about there might be some potential psychological problems or physiological problems that might be involved here. And so you always want to be a little, if that's the case, you want to be a little bit more reserved and a little bit more patient. But, Anjali has said that's not the case. She was checked out by the VA. She's a sound, fit minded body. Where are we to go with that? It sounds more and more like a drug-induced hallucination and a very great experience that maybe could have been used to humble a one's person and make themselves look at things a little differently, but is not necessarily, in my opinion, ongoing contact with any form of alien species. We just haven't seen any evidence of that. So, yeah,
yeah. This it's unfortunate though that some people were nasty to her, and I decided I wasn't going to be one of them. And I took a lot of flack for actually being kinder to her than I've been to many other people. Because you know how I am. I'm like, this person a fraud, rah, and then her I was a little more gentle with about the whole thing, right?
Yeah, well, and I'm taking a page out of that too. We can all be a little bit more gentler when we're dealing with people that we are disagreeing with or that we are confronting about things, and it's not just her. Maybe you're seeing a trend in people who are changing in this time frame, but it could just be her too. Like I said, she's real endearing, like when you talk to her, she's real personable and she makes you feel like she listens to you and is communicating with you and not just talking at you. Like she's a very personable person. So that might be part of it too, is that, like that's a kind of a tactic to make sure that people aren't going to call you out too much. There's other people who do that same thing too. They'll give you a compliment the second you're on the show, or like I pointed out Elizondo does when he got on the Black Vault with John Greenwald, and he's like, "Oh, we fear you at the Pentagon. You're a FOIA guy. You're this, that." And then I started noticing how on every show he goes to, he's got some little, "Hey, buddy," for the host. It's like, "Hey, we're pals. Don't rock me too hard. Don't ask me any hard questions because I gave you a
Yeah, it's
fist
the
bump."
game. It's the
Yeah,
game. It's the game. A
yeah,
lot of these guys play. They go in the softball UFO circle jerk and keep selling whatever their wares are. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. And that's just kind of people do that. You know, your car salesman does the same thing when you walk on the lot. If you're wearing a Portland Trail Blazers hat, he's going to be like, Blazers. If you got a Raiders hat on, he's going to be like, Raiders. You know, like he doesn't care. It's a sales technique, a manipulation technique. So, I don't, you know, I'm talking about Lou and Jolly there, so I don't want people
You're
confused. I'm
getting
not,
them conflated,
I
right? You're
know.
getting
No,
them
I'm conflating
conflated.
them all. It's Lou
Well,
Jolly.
you know what? You know what I will say is that I was getting very prejudiced against anybody coming out with a story about aliens or UFOs or, because of the amount of people that are full of shit and fraudsters out there. You start thinking they must all be like this. And I don't believe that's the case any longer. I'm trying to be kinder to people and, especially experiencers and other things because I don't know what's going on in their heads or what is creating these incredible experiences that they claim that they have. It's easy to start conflating these, and going, well, if we've shown that 10 of these people out there in UFO land making money from this are fraudsters, then why not all of them, right? But I'm still hopeful that some people are not on the take.
Yeah, you know, and there are some that are not on the take. I think the vast majority of people are out in this field and doing this for their, sincere best efforts, Where it starts to get questioning is when big money comes into it always. Big money is where you start to worry about things and people losing their base, and tending to get out of reality and into their own little worlds, like you said earlier, their bubble. So, but this field is full of people, and it's just, I think it's a trend that's mirroring the mainstream media and the rest of our lives. Like we're seeing this distrust in this news for profit, in this disclosure for profit, in buy my this, buy my that. And so people are looking
Disclosure
for
for
more
dollars, baby.
disclosure. Yeah, like people are looking more to independent people like yourself and myself. We're out there doing this because we're trying to find the truth for ourselves and at the same time share it with people as we learn it. So I think we might see a rise of that not only in ufology but also in other elements of our culture. People are going to start looking more and more for independent journalists, independent free thinkers, things like that, because it seems like every mainstream story nowadays is about clicks and views and money, and they don't really care about the news or the truth or the research hardly at all. So the pendulum
Yeah.
is swinging back.
Well, let's hope so. I need a bigger bullhorn. It's interesting though that we've got handicaps though because we're talking about a lot of facts and evidence and well researched material, and other people are just telling stories, and that's what gets the clicks and the views and the attention. It's sad. It makes me sad because I can't just make shit up here. We got to give people facts and evidence. So it's like you and me are both trying to run a marathon with two broken legs, Manny.
Right, and a backpack full of weights. I feel you. Like yeah, it is
Yeah.
hard, and there's a lot of money out there. I was talking to a guy a few years back who still works for Yahoo, and I said, "Oh, really? Yahoo's still around? What the hell are you guys doing nowadays?" And it turns out that they're in like search engine optimization and analytics. And he started going off about this rant in the mainstream about how everything's rage culture now because they did a study once that shows that people click on rage-filled headlines and thumbnails 400% more than they do on the wholesome stuff like
Then
the
everything
community
became
based.
rage filled. Yeah. Then
Yeah,
everything becomes that. Yeah,
yeah.
I know somebody that I grew up with that, believe it or not, lives in New York, and you know what he does? He writes stories about uh, celebrities, and it's the stupidest. He writes the stupidest stuff. He hates his life because he didn't become a writer to do that, but that's what people click on. You know, look at this. There's a story today that Jason Momoa is getting back with Lisa Bonet. Millions of people clicked on that story, so you can
Right.
imagine that there's revenue when millions of people, but it doesn't make that the story have any real value, I guess. You know,
And we know
and
that you can promote things too. I mean, there's ways to make sure that people click on these things by shoving it down their throat, putting it at the top of search orders, placing ads on,
mhm.
network television that are friendly or owned by the same people. There's all kinds of ways to get your story out there that's all profit driven. And, that's really kind of what we've come up with in ufology that I touched on in Who's Lou about how this UFO narrative just kept getting perpetuated because nobody wanted to stop it because it was making them all money. I mean, in the forms
Yeah,
of clicks and views. Not that there was not like it was a conspiracy, but they're just like, hey, this is the latest thing, and I'm not going to be the one guy to rock the boat. And that's all,
Well, when
so
it's on CNN a lot and Fox News, you know that they're making money from it because they don't do a story unless they're making money from it. And I want to thank Ash Dobbs for kind and generous $10 super chat. Says thanks Truth Seekers, thanks Manny, good night friends. Anybody else have any money to throw at me? There's a money button down there. Get them in now because we're going to be wrapping things up. Call this a short one. I still have to make the Patreon video for tonight. So if you're a Patreon supporter, make sure that you check out the Patreon links. It'll be up in a few hours from now.
yeah, I see some friendly faces out there. I'm going to give them all shout outs now, if you don't mind, man. Like,
Yeah, be my guest.
for the love of kitties, that's Mr. Bubbles' kitty adoption channel and cat videos. He does some really cool stuff. I know that I see Mr. Eon's out there, even though we got into a little argument the other day. Good to see you, buddy. B. Baker, V. Glitch Loop. There's all kinds of people. Ash Dobbs.
Yeah,
I
not
know
my
I missed
rabbit
some
hole.
from the
Terry
top.
Joyce is here. Cybermind Arcade, Zaxonite, shout out. And we said V. And of course, Ash Dobbs, our kind and generous $10 super chatter for tonight. We have Captain Corrosive, B. Baker, of course, holding down the live chat moderation. M.
Baker.
Kelly, 12 feet tall. Rugged Source. Yeah, we mentioned Mysterion is here. Armstrong is here. Davina is here. Michelle Morrison. Troubled Minds from the Troubled Minds podcast is here. Always good to see him in the chat. That means I'm doing something right because he's got a good show. So if he's listening, that means my show's not completely shitty, right? It's got to be at least decent if he's listening because he's got a great show. Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for coming by, everybody. And
Sunrose Homesteader, Randall Hill, Glitch Loop, Liz G, Ash Dobbs. I think we got a bunch of you. William K, Mr. DB Cooper. Oh, the people are calling me from a private number again. Lord Ludicrous Plaid with a kind and generous $1.99 says, great show. Keep up the fight, Manny and Steve. Thanks for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. We're a viewer-supported show. I should have brought Manny. I should have got Manny to get a poll or something. We can make him dance for the super chats, right? No, that'd probably make people not pay money, right?
You could pay them for, yeah.
I always say I need extra money, so I'm gonna start an OnlyFans. But on my OnlyFans, you have to pay to see me put my clothes back on. That's how mine's gonna work.
If you don't pay, I'm gonna start ripping them off. So keep. If you want to keep it sane.
Yeah, I don't think there's much else to talk about. So I think we're going to jump off here because until there's new developments or she really responds, she kind of responded, but she didn't address each of these sort of plot points that they are disputing. Captain Corrosive, Wayne is a stud and we love him. Thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. Big $5 super chat, very generous of you.
Go Wayne.
Wayne K says, thanks for the update, Stephen. Another great show. Yeah, I'm glad that I could give an update. Everybody keeps asking me, and I'm like, what do you want me to say? Nothing happened. The expedition got canceled, and the hype train went away, and now she's just talking about stuff on Twitter that the aliens tell her since then. There's not much of a story there, but this tonight is a story because now we've got two people she claimed were witnesses to her experience refuting most of what she claimed happened in that experience.
So yeah, we'll just have to see what she says until then. Then there won't be any new news on Anjali. There's no reason to really talk about her at that point. It's just kind of case closed, unfortunately. But hey, we can still, maybe she'll join ufology and do some investigating of her own and do some other things that are interesting. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I wish her the best. I think she believes that she's some kind of chosen person to do some great thing for humanity, and I guess I can, all I can do is wish her the best, and hope that whatever's going on with her, that she is at peace and happy, and it can't be good to have this much scrutiny on you for this long. It's got to be taxing. She's on Twitter. People are being nasty to her or attacking her or saying that she's full of shit or whatever for months on end. It takes a toll on you.
Yeah, and I hope nobody's out there just blasting her like that. She doesn't deserve that. Come on, she's not aggressive or hostile or combative or anything like that. She's quite the opposite. So if you want to disagree with her, disagree with her. If you want to ask her to answer to these new facts, that's one thing. But just keep it respectful. There's no reason to take it to the schoolyard level.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Well, I want to thank you, Manny, and I want to remind everybody. We'll give them another plug. It's whosloomovie.com, or search on YouTube for Area 503 and look for his video with the most views. That would be the Who's Lou movie. It's free to watch on YouTube. It's also on Odyssey. You guys had to back it up there, which I was glad to see due to people trying to cancel Manny and his movie. And that's not right. So go over there, whosloomovie.com. All the research material, everything he talks about is all on the website. And you can watch the movie on whosloomovie.com for free as well. It costs nothing, and it's good to ask questions and support people who are asking the tough questions. Lou Elizondo won't come here or appear with Manny and answer these questions. So Manny asked the questions publicly. And so far, Lou Elizondo has not answered any of these questions, which leads me to believe that Manny may be right over the target with a lot of his interpretation of the evidence. Who's LouMovie.com. Make sure you support him, guys.
Thanks, guys, and support other people like Stephen Cambion and Charlie Weiser who are out there doing good research in the name of truth and just getting it out there. Like none of us has a financial interest in this. This is about getting the truth out. So make sure that you guys are out there supporting people like that. Go give Charlie a subscribe and support their work in any way that you can.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to throw you out of here. Thank you for your participation. Good night. All right, friends. What can I say? You wanted an update. We finally have one to bring to you. I'm sorry, it may not be what you guys wanted to hear. Some of you have been following the story and are big believers in Anjali. Others have been more skeptical, and maybe this outcome is exactly what you expected. Me, I still wish her the best, and I'm hopeful that maybe she'll come here and talk about these recent revelations. She's welcome to do that. We have an open door policy for her and many others here. Anybody that we talk about really is free to come here and have a conversation with us. So what else can I say? Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thanks to our kind and generous Patreon supporters, PayPal donators, Cash App, it's Truthseeker Show, or Super Chatters. We appreciate that, being a viewer-supported show. And I'm always happy when there's an audience. So glad you could come here tonight and be a part of mine, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you.